"Step back, old man, or you're next." That's what one of them shouted just before they tased my wife. Weapons were pointed at me next. I didn't scream, I didn't panic. I looked straight at their commander and calmly said 5 words. "Call. General Roar right now." And just like that, the entire SWAT team froze. Everyone in the neighborhood knew me as the guy who fixed engines. Weekend garage open, classic rock playing, and my hands deep in carburetors. But almost nobody knew about the 27 years of service, the classified missions, the medals hidden in a shoebox. Only my wife Linda knew it all. Every scar, every nightmare, every deployment. That Wednesday started like any other. I was under Mrs. Henderson's Buick changing the oil. Linda had gone grocery shopping. Senior discount day at Palmer's Market. But the screeching tires shattered that normal day. 4 black SUVs stormed into my driveway. Armed men in tactical gear jumped out, shouting, "Police! Everyone on the ground!" I stood up, hands raised, engine grease still on my fingers. "This is some kind of mistake," I said, but they forced me down. As I lay on the concrete, zip-tied, Linda pulled into the driveway. She stepped out, holding grocery bags, confused. "Roy, what's going on?" Weapons turned to her instantly. "Drop the bags, hands where we can see them." Her arthritic hands couldn't move fast enough. One officer, too hyped on adrenaline, shouted, "Non-compliant subject," then the taser fired. Linda convulsed as her groceries scattered. Milk splashed, eggs broke, apples rolled beneath boots. Even then, I didn't lose control. I locked my eyes on the SWAT commander. "Let me up," I said, with quiet authority. He hesitated, but nodded. Still, zip-tied, I stood, looked him dead in the eye, and said the 5 words, "Call General Roar right now." The air changed instantly. Weapons stayed aimed, but confusion spread like wildfire. One officer sneered, "You're not scaring anyone, old man. We have a warrant for Carlos Mendez. High-level drug trafficking." I didn't blink. "You're at 4588 Oakwood Drive. You want 4588 Oakwood Avenue, different zip code." The commander ordered his men to check the address. Meanwhile, I calmly said, "Left pocket, look but don't touch." He reached into my jacket and pulled out a badge, Black Eagle insignia. Instantly, the older members of the team recognized it. One whispered, "Sir, that's Tier 1 Black." Protocol, the commander's face drained of color. "Medic, cut his restraints, now!" I knelt beside Linda as a medic rushed over. "You hit the wrong house," I said flatly. "You escalated. You used force on a senior citizen carrying groceries." A neighbor had filmed everything. Later, he'd tell reporters, "He just said 5 words and they all froze." The commander tried to explain, "Sir, we had intel." I cut him off. "No, you had adrenaline, authority, and 0 accountability." Linda slowly regained consciousness. I held her hand as I spoke to the commander again. "I'm taking my wife inside now. You will stay here, and you will call General Roar immediately." The young officer who fired the taser stood frozen, his career collapsing in front of him. The minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. No sirens, no lights. General James Roar stepped out. No uniform, but authority radiated from him. He saluted. I returned it. "They told me you were dead," he said. "Only professionally," I replied. The general turned to the SWAT team. "This man wrote the protocols you just broke." Even the SWAT officers finally realized who I was. One whispered, "R.J. Tanner, the Civilian Engagement Handbook. He wrote it." The commander tried to defend his team, but Roar wasn't having it. "You humiliated a national asset today." He turned to the young officer who had fired the taser. "Your equipment, now." The young man handed over his badge, vest, and sidearm. His career over. General Roar then handed me a sealed envelope, a formal apology, and reinstatement of your clearances. "We need you back, Roy." I looked at Linda. "My service is to her now." Roar nodded, placing the envelope on the porch railing. "The offer stands," he said, then left. A week later, the police chief stood before the cameras announcing the 5 words protocol. A mandatory training on de-escalation, proper identification, and respect for civilians. They never mentioned my name. They didn't have to. The video had already gone viral. Linda recovered. The bruises faded, but her strength only grew. Neighbors noticed the change too, patrol cars slowing near our driveway, officers nodding first, and every once in a while an unmarked black SUV dropping small thank you gifts. Months later, a rookie officer's cruiser broke down near my house. I walked out with my tools before he could even call for help. As we worked under the hood, he finally asked, "Sir, everyone talks about you. You could have ended careers that day. Why didn't you?" I smiled. "Because revenge doesn't fix engines, and it doesn't fix people either." The engine roared back to life. "Thank you, sir," he said. "Just Roy," I corrected. Later, a reporter asked me, "Why didn't you fight back when they attacked your wife? Why only 5 words?" I looked straight into the camera, because 5 words were louder than fear. And true strength isn't about standing over someone else. It's about standing your ground. Time moved on. Months had passed since that day, but the echoes of what happened still lingered everywhere. Every morning when I stepped out for my usual walk, patrol cars would slow as they passed. Officers would lower their heads slightly, offering a silent salute. The arrogance they once carried was gone, replaced with respect, but the image burned deepest in my mind was Linda. Though her bruises had faded, some wounds weren't visible. The humiliation of that day clung to her like a shadow. I knew some scars never heal completely. One afternoon, as I worked under the hood of an old Chevy in my garage, a young officer cautiously approached my driveway. Fresh face, probably. Fresh out of the academy, his uniform still too crisp. "Sir, may I speak with you?" His voice carried respect, but also a touch of nervousness. "Of course, officer, but around here, just call me Roy." He stepped closer, hesitating before continuing. "We've been studying your protocol in training. The 5 words protocol. They say you changed how we operate now." I simply smiled. "I didn't change anything, son. I just reminded people what real authority looks like. Calm, clear, and controlled." That evening, Linda and I sat on the porch, sipping tea, the autumn breeze gently rustling the trees. A familiar black SUV slowly pulled into the driveway. But this time, it wasn't General Raw stepping out. A sharply dressed woman emerged, her posture straight, expression serious. "Mr. Tanner," she began, "I'm Agent Caldwell. I work directly under Central Command. The General speaks very highly of you." I nodded, gesturing for her to speak. "There's been a development." Her tone grew heavier. "We uncovered how your address ended up in SWAT's system that day. It wasn't a simple clerical error." My hands instinctively tightened on the mug. Linda's eyes darted toward me, fear creeping into her face. "Explain," I said, my voice calm but cold. "Carlos Mendez was tipped off to relocate months ago. Someone inside law enforcement deliberately inserted your address into the system. This wasn't a mistake, Mr. Tanner. It was a probe." The years of training buried deep inside me suddenly came rushing back. So this wasn't just about a raid. This was about me. Agent Caldwell nodded gravely. "They wanted to see if the legend was still alive." "Who is they?" My voice grew sharper now. "We're still working on that, sir. But these are not ordinary players. They're targeting Tier 1 retirees like yourself. Individuals who know things that were never meant to exist on any record." I stared off into the distance for a moment. This was no longer about the wrong house. It was a warning, or an invitation. I looked at Linda, my partner for 43 years. I had sworn to keep her safe, to leave that world behind. "I'm retired," I said firmly, but Caldwell's eyes didn't flinch. "Sir, I understand, but retirement doesn't always mean you're out. Whoever orchestrated this may try again, and next time they might not make the same mistakes." For the next few weeks, life continued. On the surface, I still fixed cars, still mentored kids at the high school auto shop, still volunteered at the VFW. But the unease never fully left. Linda's smiles were a little tighter. The patrol cars lingered a little longer. One evening, as I closed up the garage, the same black SUV returned. This time, General Raw stepped out himself. No salute, no formalities, just the weight of shared history hanging between us. "They're escalating, Roy," he said without preamble. "2 more Tier 1 assets have been compromised. 1 is missing." I said nothing, waiting. "They're systematically targeting anyone connected to the old Black Protocol networks. You're not just a loose end to them, Roy. You're a threat. You know things they want buried." "Why come to me?" I finally asked. Raw sighed. "Because there aren't many like you left, and because you're the one they fear the most." I stared into his eyes, the same man I once trusted with my life, the same man who had buried operations we were never supposed to survive. "I told you before, General, my duty now is here, to Linda, to this life." "I know," Raw said softly, "but I also know who you are. And if they come again, I'd rather you be prepared than caught off guard." He reached into his coat and handed me a secure folder, updated clearances, access to the secure network, and contact codes should you need them. That night, long after the house had grown quiet, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the file. A war I thought was over was calling again. Linda quietly entered, placing her hand gently on my shoulder. "Roy," she whispered, "if you have to go back in, I'll stand beside you." I shook my head, reaching up to cover her hand with mine. "No, love. This time, if it comes to our doorstep again, I won't wait for 5 words. I'll be ready." But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Some ghosts never stay buried, and some wars find you whether you want them or not. Sometimes it doesn't matter how far you run from the past, because the past knows your address, and mine was 4588 Oakwood Drive. It started 2 months after Agent Caldwell's visit. Life appeared normal. Linda and I were back into our routines. The high school auto shop, the VFW on Thursdays, wheelchair ramps for disabled veterans on Saturdays. But the truth, I never stopped watching. Every delivery truck, every car that slowed too long near the driveway, every face in the grocery store that stayed just a little too close. They weren't done. One morning, as I worked under the hood of a neighbor's car, the feeling hit me again, that old instinct, the one you don't forget after decades of black ops. Surveillance, 2 black sedans parked 3 houses down, same model, same tinted windows, unmarked, but too clean for civilians. Linda brought me a glass of water. She saw my eyes. "They're back, aren't they?" she asked softly. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That evening, I activated something I hadn't touched in years, a secure satellite uplink, still operational, still encrypted. They may have thought I was retired, but I never left unprepared. The network responded instantly. One code word typed, "Sentinel active." Within seconds, a reply, "Status request. Imminent threat detected." I typed 2 words, "Unknown entity." Then silence. 2 days later, Agent Caldwell returned. This time, her face was tight, less formal, and behind her, not just soldiers, but 2 men I recognized immediately, Tier 1 ghosts, men like me, men who were supposed to have disappeared. "You were right," Caldwell said. "They're not just probing anymore. They've begun targeting families." She looked at Linda with quiet guilt. "Last night, an operative's wife was abducted. They left a message. Cooperate or lose more. We believe you're next." I stood up slowly, my voice calm, cold. The soldier inside me fully awake now. "Do you have names?" Caldwell hesitated, then slid a file across the table. Inside were photographs, satellite images, intercepted communications, classified personnel lists, but one face stopped me cold. Victor Hale, an old name, An old enemy, one I thought I'd never hear again. Victor Hale wasn't just another operative. He was one of ours. Once, a Black Ops commander turned rogue, vanished years ago after a mission gone wrong. Now, he was hunting us. I closed the file. If Hale is involved, you're not dealing with just a rogue cell, I said. You're dealing with something bigger, something sanctioned. Caldwell nodded. We believe elements inside certain agencies are protecting him, even aiding him. That's why we need you, Roy. I looked at Linda. She didn't speak. She simply placed her hand on mine again, steady, unshaken. You know what I said before? I whispered to her. She smiled faintly. And I meant what I said too. That night I opened the secure envelope Raw had left on my porch months ago. Inside were updated access codes and a name. Task Force Phoenix. Reactivation authorized. 2 weeks later, the war returned. 17 a.m. The phone rang once. A single ring. The prearranged signal. I was already awake. Within 10 minutes, a small team assembled inside my garage. Silent, efficient, precise. Former Tier 1 assets. The kind of men who didn't exist on official rosters. We found Hale. Caldwell said quietly, "But it's a trap." I nodded. "Good, then let's spring it." We moved under cover of darkness. No SWAT teams, no jurisdictional politics. Just professionals doing what we were trained to do. The compound was heavily guarded, ex-military contractors, private security, black market tech, but they weren't prepared for us. They never are. The assault was surgical, quick, clean, non-lethal, whenever possible. Unlike them, we still respected life. In less than 8 minutes, we reached the control room, and there he was, Victor Hale, older now, but the same cold eyes. "You never could stay buried, could you, Roy?" Hale smirked. "You forced." "My hand," I replied. "You crossed a line when you came for my family." He raised his hands. "I was only following orders." "Whose orders?" Hale's smile widened. "Do you really think I'm the end of this? I'm just the bait." Before I could react, an explosion rocked the compound. "Ambush! Evasive maneuver!" I barked. Smoke filled the corridors. Bullets tore through the walls, but my team, my family, moved like ghosts. We'd been through worse. When the dust settled, Hale was gone, extracted by someone with far more power than him. We had only scratched the surface. Back at home, Linda waited on the porch, her eyes locked on me as we pulled up before dawn. I held her tighter than I ever had. "It's bigger than we thought," I whispered. She smiled softly. "Then you'll finish it. Because sometimes the real war doesn't happen on battlefields. It happens in silence, in shadows, in places where only ghosts walk. And now I was walking again. Some battles end with gunfire, some battles end with silence, and some never end, not until you end them yourself. We had stopped Project Oblivion. We had eliminated Hale. We had exposed Director Stroud. But the rot inside the system ran deeper than any of us imagined. 2 weeks after the operation, I sat on my porch quietly watching the sunrise. For a moment it felt like peace. But men like me, we know the difference between peace and the calm before another storm. Agent Caldwell arrived quietly, as usual, but this time she wasn't alone. General Raw was with her. His expression was darker than I'd ever seen. "We have a problem." "Roy," Raw said without any pleasantries. "The Council," that was all he said, and it was all I needed to hear. The Council. The true architects behind Black Protocol, behind Oblivion, behind everything. They weren't government. They weren't military. They were beyond both, untouchable, hidden in plain sight. And now, exposed. "They've activated Tier 0, Caldwell said grimly. I narrowed my eyes. "They're sending Reapers." Raw nodded. "Not one. All of them." Reapers weren't soldiers. They were the Council's personal enforcers, designed to Erase anything or anyone permanently. Men like me were dangerous. The Reapers. They were monsters. They're coming for me, I said. Roar shook his head. They're coming for all of us. For the first time since this began, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. The weight, the kind of weight only men who have seen true war carry. We had one option left, not run, not hide. Expose them publicly, completely. So loud that even the council couldn't silence it, but that meant breaching their mainframe, the archive. Digital vault located beneath a private banking fortress in Zurich, heavily guarded, fortified, suicide to even attempt. But then again, they thought this was over. They forgot who they were dealing with. We go in one time, I told Caldwell, and Roar. And we finish it. The plan was simple. Get in, extract the files, broadcast the truth to every major outlet on the planet, burn the council to the ground. The insertion was clean, silent entry through underground maintenance shafts. Every move rehearsed down to the second. Caldwell bypassed the security grid while Roar provided tactical overwatch. Inside the archive, rows of servers hummed like sleeping beasts. In the center, the main console, the heart of the council's secret. Empire, we started the extraction, and that's when the lights died. They're here, Caldwell whispered. The Reapers had arrived. We fought like men with nothing left to lose. The Reapers were fast, surgical, but they weren't expecting ghosts. We moved as one, flanking, cutting angles, neutralizing threats with quiet precision. Minutes felt like hours. My body screamed from old wounds reopened, but we held the line. Finally, Caldwell shouted, "Files extracted." I hit the uplink button, instantly launching the data to every major network, every global whistleblower server. In a matter of seconds, the world knew the Council's secrets, every dirty operation, every illegal experiment, every assassination exposed. The Council wasn't untouchable anymore. The remaining Reapers paused. Some lowered their weapons. Without orders, they were just men. Some of them even looked relieved. The lies were finally over. As dawn broke over Zurich, Caldwell, Roar, and I stood on the rooftop, watching helicopters circle above. World governments were scrambling. Public outcry had begun. The council was collapsing. I called Linda. Her voice steadied me. "It's over," I whispered. "It's finally over." But she said something I didn't expect. "No, Roy, you ended it." 3 weeks later, I declined every medal, every parade, every interview. The world didn't need to know my name. Linda and I went back to Oakwood Drive, back to the garage, back to fixing engines, back to real life. But every patrol car that drove by slowed just a little, not out of fear, out of respect, because sometimes the loudest battles are won by those who never needed to raise their voices. Only 5 words: call. General Roar right now, and the world it would never forget.